Hi guys, Mr. Colella here. We are going to talk today about the distributive property. I'm hoping that after watching this video, you're going to kind of understand how the distributive property works. If you're not feeling fully great about it at the end, I don't want you to stress. We will be continuing to talk about distributive property for a few more days. We'll be getting plenty of practice with it. So if you have any questions with it at all, we will discuss it the next time we are together. So I don't want you to worry. We're going to just do the best that we can with this, all right? So let's talk about it. Here is our technical definition. The definition states that the distributive property states that multiplying two or more addends by a number will give the same result as multiplying each addend individually and then adding the products. Now, that is what you would find if you looked up the actual definition. That probably means nothing to you. So let's talk about what that is really telling us. So here is a problem written out twice, same exact problem. We have 5 times, in parentheses, 2 plus 4. What distributive property lets us know is we can solve this in one of two ways. The first way would be to take that 5 and say, hey, I'm multiplying it by the stuff in parentheses, and typically anything in parentheses I'm supposed to do first. So I could say, hey, 2 plus 4 is 6, and so this is just 5 times 6, which is 30. So if you notice, in this one, I added those things in parentheses first, and then I multiplied. What distributive property says is that, hey, we can actually do it the other way. We can multiply first and then add. So watch, I'm going to use the distributive property on the one on the right. So instead of adding them together first and then multiplying by 5, we're going to take this 5 on the outside. We're going to multiply it by each thing in the parentheses individually. You can see right here in the definition, it says multiplying each addend individually. So we're going to say 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 4 is 20. And I'm going to add those together. 10 plus 20 is still 30, just the same as what I got over here. So I get the same answer both times. So that is what distributive property is all about. It's about being able to take a number here on the outside of a parenthesis, multiply it by each thing on the inside, and then put those things together. Now, that is something that you should have done back in 6th grade. We're going to put a little twist on it here in 7th grade. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So obviously we're doing algebra. We're going to be introducing some variables to this situation. So what will that look like? Well, you're going to have things like this. So you can see I have here a 4 outside of the parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis is x plus 3. So what this really means is 4 times whatever x plus 3 is. Now we have no idea what x plus 3 is because we don't know the value of x. So what I can do is I can take my distributive property and apply it to this situation. So I'm going to use my distributive property, and I'm going to say 4 times x, that would be 4x. 4 times 3 is 12, and I'm adding those together. So what I can say here is that 4 times x plus 3 is equal to 4x plus 12. I've simply taken that 4 on the outside, multiplied it first by the x, and then also multiplied it by the 3. You need to remember to always multiply it by both things that are inside those parentheses. Let's take another look at what that might look like. Here's another example. We have 8 outside the parenthesis being multiplied by 3 minus m inside the parenthesis. Again, I don't know what 3 minus m is, so I have to use my distributive property here. So I'm going to take that 8 on the outside. I'm going to multiply it by the 3. 8 times 3 is 24. I'm going to say 8 times m is 8m. Now this time, if you look, I had a subtraction in there. So I will put a subtraction in my answer. You always put whatever you had in the original problem. So if I have an addition, I put addition in my answer. If I have subtraction, I put subtraction in my answer. So this one turns into 24 minus 8m. We can take this a step further and get a little bit more difficult. Say, what if we have a negative number outside that parenthesis. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So I have negative 5 outside, and then in parentheses, x plus 7. Let's see what happens here. Okay. So in this case, I still just take that negative 5, that number on the outside, and I'm still going to multiply it by each thing inside the parenthesis. So negative 5 times x is going to be negative 5x. I have negative 5 times 7. Negative 5 times 7 is negative 35. I have a plus sign here, though. So it's negative 5x plus negative 35. Now, you guys should know that anytime you add a negative, that is the same thing as subtracting. So I could then turn this into a final answer of negative 5x minus 35, because plus a negative is the same thing as subtracting a positive. We have discussed that in the past. Okay? So anytime you have a negative, you might need to do a little adjusting on your final answer. Okay? Here's another example of that. So again, we have a negative number on the outside. Let's take that negative 3, and first we're going to multiply it by w. Negative 3 times w is negative 3w. Now, negative 3 times 8 is going to be negative 24. I'm going to take that subtraction sign, bring it down. So I have negative 3w minus negative 24. Well, subtracting a negative is the same thing as adding a positive. Okay, so again, I'm kind of adjusting that answer in the end when I have a negative. Okay. We can take this a step further. We can say, what if there's more than one variable? Everything we've looked at so far, there's only been one variable each time. So let's see what happens in this situation. So I have x outside of the parenthesis. Inside the parentheses, I have 4 plus y. Now, this is probably something you've never seen before. Okay? Anytime we multiply two variables together, we simply are going to put them next to each other. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say that I have, I don't know, a times b. A times b is just ab. We can't put it any other way because we don't know the values of those variables. So I'm just leaving it as ab. If I had m times n, it would just be mn. You just put them next to each other. We typically always list them in alphabetical order, though. So we wouldn't say BA or NM. We always put them in alphabetical order when we do that. Okay? So let's clear these out of the way. And let's look at the problem we have here. Other than the fact that I have two variables, I'm going to treat it the same way I treated my other distributive property problems. I'm going to take the thing on the outside of the parenthesis, which happens to be an x, and I'm going to multiply it by 4. Now, that is not x4, that's 4x. Because anytime you have a coefficient, which is the number with the variable, the number comes first. I'm then going to say x times y, that's xy. And I had an addition sign, so I put that there. So I get 4x plus xy. That's my answer. I'm just leaving it like that. Let's look at another example here. We have k outside the parenthesis times, and then in the parentheses, m plus 7. Again, I am going to take what is on the outside, which in this case happens to be a k, and I'm going to multiply it by each thing on the inside individually. So k times m, is km. Remember, whatever comes first alphabetically is what you list first. So k comes before m, so that's why I'm saying km rather than mk. I can then do k times 7, which is not k7, but 7k, because remember, numbers come first. And this was addition, so I popped that down there in my answer. So it turns into km plus 7k. That's it. We are leaving it as just an expression. We want you to understand that this expression we have just created is equal to our original expression. That's all we're doing. Okay? So far we have looked at some pretty standard distributive property. We've looked at ones that have a negative on the outside of the parenthesis. We've now looked at ones where we have two variables. Let's take one more step here, and let's say, what if there's more than two terms inside the parentheses? Everything we've done so far has only had two things on the inside of those parentheses, but we can technically have as many as we want. Let's look at an example here where we happen to have three. If there's ever more than two things, you're just going to multiply by however many things there are. So in this case, I'm just going to take this 9, and I'm going to have to multiply 3 times. So I'm going to say 9 times 4, and that's, of course, 36. I'm now going to do 9 times 2x. 9 times 2x would be 18x. And now I'm going to do 9 times 8y. 9 times 8y is 72y. And I'm going to take those addition and subtraction symbols. So addition here. So I have addition between the 36 and the 18x. And subtraction here. So I have subtraction between the 18x and the 72y. So I have taken this and turned it into this. And again, the only difference here is we have more than two things on the inside of those parentheses. In that situation, I just multiply each one individually. I hope this makes sense, guys. You're going to have a few of these to try on your own. Again, any questions that you may have, we will answer in the next few days as we continue to work on this. Have a great day, and I will see you next time.